I'm Shwa, and you are listening to Light Up with Shwa, a weekly podcast to open our hearts and minds on a journey with me. Welcome to Light Up with Shwa. This is part 2 with Daniel Tutt. Hope you have watched part 1 with Daniel Tutt as well, and if you haven't, please go and watch it, and hopefully you will enjoy that as well. So stay tuned for part 2 with Daniel Tutt. When you decided to become a parent, were you conscious of it? Did you educate yourself?
Yeah.
Were you...
I did. We had natural births with both children. We placed my mother. My mother, who really raised me, I was really raised by a single mother, has always been a source of strength for me. And so she's really the figure that I look to for parenting skills. And she is not someone who's read a lot of books about parenting, but she has a kind of intuition that I think is very powerful. And my wife also has a similar strong kind of intuitive force. And so both of our children are in Montessori school, so we try to place a huge emphasis on independence.
So that's very good. That's very good. Go, continue, please.
We live in a predominantly African-American neighborhood.
Is that intentional?
In part. I mean, it's beautiful. I love it. My daughter's best friend is an African-American young man and young boy. And, it's really, I think, good for them.
So you're kind of starting early on, like bringing them to a level of different diversities to interact
I want to understand, the perspectives and the experiences, but also the realities of what different minority groups in this country have had to go through, and fused with a sense of a real understanding of a broad understanding of how racial identity and how ethnic and cultural and religious identity influences people. So I like living in a city. I like having, remember, I'm from Oregon, which is, a predominantly white state. There's nothing wrong with that, but you sort of miss out on a rough pluralism, a rough access to those kinds of experiences. And I think life is just richer when you have that,
Yeah, that's a good point. Life is richer if you have more diversity, more if you're open to different colors, just like foods, right? We try all kinds of foods, so why not people who make those foods, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you. So how do you spend time with your children?
Well, we're trying to do a lot of outdoor activities.
They're not on the gadgets?
We try to limit the gadgets. The gadgets do come up, but we have a policy of no TV except on the weekends.
Oh, wonderful.
No screens during the week, which can be hard. We go to the library every weekend, the public library, where they get an opportunity to choose the book.
Do you go with them?
I'm sorry?
Do you go with them?
We all go with them.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
So I was just checking. I thought maybe you're taking the credit when your wife and the kids go and you say, well. No, I'm just...
No, so we're trying to inculcate a love for reading as best we can. It comes naturally, so, you just try to push them a little bit,
Do you read at night? Do you read at night
read at night
for them? Yeah.
And they love that. So we're doing Harry Potter. We're a number of really fun adventure stories. my daughter loves graphic novels. She loves Pokemon, which if it's in book form, that's okay with me. We try to do a lot of adventures as much as possible, and do fun, fulfilling experiences with the whole family. Always insist on having dinner together.
Excellent.
Important.
So you're there for the dinner time at least, not working too late.
All there, and there's a kind of moment of reflection, at least once a day. That's really important.
So are you the parent who believes that you own the children, or children come through you? Are you a source, or are you owner of them?
That's a great, deep question. I think
Thank you.
For a certain period of time, whether you like it or not, as a parent, you are the source. And by that I mean they have to figure their way through your history and through the family's collective history, whether they like it or not. They can never quite run away from that. But they do have a possibility to transcend it. But they have to work through all of that. And it's a process. I would say for a certain stage, you sort of are, realistically, you are the source. But the goal would be to be a facilitator for allowing a true independence to take place, so that they can really make a name for themselves, not only in society, but they can really come to know themselves very, very independently, very robustly.
So would you say that parenting is about yourself or about the child? How would you take that question? Briefly, if you can, so we can get to our last leg of questions.
It has to be about the child, which means the caveat there is that there's prior work, there's like pre-work that you have to do to figure out. You have to ground yourself with a certain methodology or a certain principled approach to parenting in all instances. You cannot fly by the seat of your pants. So I think the end goal is that it really is about the child, but there has to be the prior work done on understanding just what your values are, just what your principles are, how you are approaching this.
So would you say on that you need to pay attention to yourself rather than the child alone?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
You do, but I think there's a certain work you can do where you've completed that, and you can enter into a flow and a rhythm that just happens. Maybe things that happen along the way which force you to revisit your approach to parenting. But I believe that everyone should develop a kind of singular approach, and then once they've done that, they can allow for, a flow and a rhythm to take place. Because children have to have radical consistency in their lives in almost every way imaginable, and you have to facilitate that consistency.
Okay. If you don't mind, can you give any examples for me to understand what you said?
I mean, consistency from a mundane level of bedtime, food, consistency of healthy food from a subsistence level, but emotional consistency in communication, in disciplining, and, a consistency also of activity. When I take my children to vacation across the country, visit family in Oregon, it's extremely difficult for them compared to how it is for me, because there's a fundamental routine that is disturbed. So the routine is very significant. Management of their anger and management of your anger is very important. It's not that anger is bad, but I think we all have outbursts. I think the most important thing when there's an outburst of anger for any family member is that it be processed at a collective level, so that the whole family has an account for why there was a break. Why did mom or dad or, so-and-so speak in such a way which was different than what I'm used to? So if they have an account, that's, I think, one way to, of course, you want to try to lessen that, but I just think it's an example of consistency.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm a very affectionate parent, and I give a lot of nicknames and a lot of affection.
Like physically also, like, hugging and all? And verbally, do you address them with...
Yeah. And,
okay.
It was interesting because my father was very non-affectionate, like radically non-affectionate.
So you have broken the cycles, I guess. That's where your parenting comes in, that all the negativities that you felt through your life, and I'm sure you had good times and good parenting also, but so that's a struggle in itself, that you had to break out of that so that you don't repeat the cycle with your children. I think that's very important for parents to do.
Yes. So I just think affection is...
Yes. From fathers especially.
I feel it's very important.
Yep, I think so too. Because I think no matter which culture we are talking about, fathers are usually at a little distance, as if they are not supposed to. Doesn't matter how much affection they are feeling inside. But I think expressing makes a big difference.
Precisely.
Yeah, that's very good. Well, you got a star there. All right. Okay, thank you for sharing all that. That was very, very good. I hope people will enjoy your insights. Okay, so talk a little bit about what's important in your life at this time. You're young, much younger, and you have whole life to live, and your children are younger. So, but at this time and in this point in life, what is important to you?
The first thing that comes to mind is trying to help people in our country who have levels of resentment that have built up over time that they're not in touch with, and trying to find a way to connect with them in different ways. I'm really concerned with this issue. I believe that a lot of racism and a lot of the sort of Trump phenomenon is a result of compounded resentment. And I think that a lot of people are angry and a lot of people are unhappy in our society. And so what I'm very concerned with is both understanding how and why this is the case, but also with providing solutions. And this is why I believe that politically we need to introduce a whole new sort of direction. And I know we don't have time to get into that, but I'm really concerned with not repeating the same mistakes of recent years when it comes to how we think about putting forward certain policies and certain ideals. So I'm really interested in trying to help people with this kind of collective suffering problem, which that's number one. Number two, I'm very concerned with the idea of adulthood, actually. So we're talking about children and parenting. And, there's a lot of literature, academic, but also popular literature, which really talks about how, young people are having a very difficult time becoming fully adults. And it very much concerns me. There's something going on in our culture which seems to be almost preventing transitions, rites of passage. place.
So you mean from teenagery to adolescent to adulthood, so you want it to be more structured, or you want it to be on their own? Because everybody is different. Everybody is teenagery and adolescence, and, I think numbers versus what your state actually is not necessarily the same for everybody, right?
No, it's not, but it's a trend. And it's an important trend, which is happening at a more accelerated rate. And it is basically...
Which trend? I am not understanding. Like
the failure of young people, or the incapacity from making transitions into quote-unquote adulthood.
Okay.
But it be a man, and things like this.
So you think they are immature, or they don't take responsibility?
It's actually... I'm glad you asked that question. I actually understand it more to be a kind of social material problem which is happening in our social world, which is largely a result of what I might call the marketization of everyday life. So people lack oftentimes the proper level of stability. We no longer have a stable, what they call welfare society. Not welfare like Newt Gingrich talked about it, but welfare as in like the post-World War II period up into about the late 1970s, which was really animated by a lot more leisure time, a lot more freedom from labor, and a lot more feelings of safeness and security. But today we live in a world where people are tired, they're angry, they're overworked. They don't know what's going to come next. I mean, especially since the economic downturn of 2008, so many people now think the world is coming to an end. And in many ways, with global climate change, it appears that way. So what I'm saying to you is that it's created a crisis for youth identity. And I think this is a way to understand why we have so many social pathological outbursts.
Oh, okay.
Things like this. Okay? So there's a certain collective suffering that's happening, and it needs a systemic response to change systems. Otherwise, I think that we're going to... Because I don't really perceive social change through the prism of an individual. An individual is always a product of a social arrangement, And so we have a lot of work to do in that area. We have work with ourselves, but when the social arrangement, the systemic arrangement, becomes unequal and somehow degraded, somehow not serving people well enough, you cannot have a true kind of individual flourishing. It becomes a lot more difficult. So I'm very concerned about this, maybe issues of systemic justice.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Some light question. What do you like about yourself?
I'm really kind of a paradox because I'm a very introverted person. I've always been deeply fearful of speaking in front of groups, but I also find a lot of catharsis with speaking publicly. I love teaching a big seminar of 60 students. I love giving talks at places, and so. But that's something that I've kind of I've grown into. So I like that weird paradox. So I guess I'm a really inquisitive person. I really want to know. I want to know your story and the truth of it. Down and really get deep with you. So I guess I like.
We will. Yes, thank you. Okay,
I can start a podcast and interview you. Maybe.
Well, okay. Maybe then we can collaborate, or maybe host a show.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Okay. Anything you'd like to change about yourself?
think that probably there's a lot of things I'd like to change about myself. Let me name one.
Yeah, no, I don't want a big list. I just want...
I would like to be the kind of person that is open to changing their mind. Not like at the drop of a hat, but I think that too often we are very rigid in worldviews, how we see the world, how we see things. And it's just a reminder to myself that I'm rigid too, you know.
So I'm talking about you. Like, what do you like to change about yourself? So do you think you're rigid?
I think sometimes I can be. I mean, it takes a while to be convinced. That's the thing. So that's one thing.
So I should feel achieved today. I guess I convinced you to talk to me today.
Yeah, no, I'm not too rigid. I'm just saying, like, that's something. But maybe more precisely, I'd like to... No, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to be better.
Okay, it's always good to improve yourself and to think about yourself. There's nothing wrong. We all need that. All right, next question. What is the value of gratitude in your life? What are you thankful for? What is gratitude? What is the value of gratitude for you?
Most kind of important thing to be thankful for is my own existence, is the fact that we have life, the fact that we can face the truth and face it with a love, face it with a determination, not run away from it. So I think the purpose of my life is something around achieving the impossible.
Wonderful. And wonderful.
The impossible comes in different forms, but I'm not interested in what's possible. I'm interested in what's not possible, because I'm interested, therefore, in change. And so if you want to really know how to change, I think you have to orientate yourself towards something higher. It eludes us.
Okay. All right. Are you afraid of anything?
I don't think I'm afraid of death. I'm no longer afraid of trauma.
Okay.
I have a trust in the universe to a certain extent, although global climate change is disrupting that in very strange ways. But I feel at harmony with my existence often.
Thank you. Any message of hope?
I am hopeful about things. However, I do feel that hope may not be enough. I think we need to address the challenges we have, from global climate change to systemic inequality to racism, to all of these problems, to the pervasive, sense of alienation and anger that people have. I don't know if hope is enough.
So what is enough? What have you found? What can we replace it with if hope is not enough?
I think I would break it down at a collective level and at an individual level. At an individual level, I would try to think that joy or love is something that would override hope. So I would replace love with hope.
Okay.
Because love is something which actually insists on the impossible. It insists on taking what we have before us and creating a new possibility with it. Like, when Martin Luther King put forward all of his ideals for the beloved community, he understood love as a sustainer of this dangerous idea that he was trying to change in society. And we should remember, he was perceived as a very dangerous person when he was alive. We may not see him that way now in hindsight, but he didn't really talk about hope. He talked about radical love. And radical love was necessary because he was interested in fundamentally changing society. So again, I'm not sure that hope is the best value for people interested in truly changing social conditions. You need something like love that can sustain the instability that will come in your attempt to radically reform or radically change social conditions. So that, I would say, kind of put it like that. I think love is more significant than hope. Okay. Because hope is finite. Love is infinite. Maybe I could ask you, where are you coming from when you say hope?
Mm-hmm. I would say that hope is kind of a place that gives room to love. Because if you don't have hope, then you can't really do anything, in my experience, or what have I understood. It's how we understand or what our experience is. Because love is also used in a very multiple ways, and how everybody understands love. What love are you talking about? Godly love, or the humanly love, or the love for this yourself and all. But hope, I thought, was more neutral in terms of how you can not get, like in Islamic tradition, there is, don't be hopeless. Never go for hopelessness. In the most dire condition or anything, just have hope. It's not. One can say that hope is love also, maybe in its own ways, because it gives you love for more life, love for a room for more optimism or something. Because if you don't have hope, I don't know how love will replace. So maybe we can have another discussion on love and hope, because this is a deeper conversation. And that's how I have understood that from the tradition. And I always felt, yes, it's always important when hope is there, doesn't matter how dire the conditions are. If you're hopeful, you will always come out of it.
No, you're right. You're right. I do think people have to have hope as a baseline, and
that can take you into love, because because love has so many definitions depending on where you're coming from. Right. Hope is still, in my view, maybe you can correct me.
Well, the kind of love I'm interested in is a social or civic form of love, which would be, I always use the metaphor of glue. Like it's like a glue that binds, almost like a lubricant that binds parts which are not supposed to be together. So if you look at what it means to change the world, what it really means is facilitating and reorganizing parts that are not supposed to be arranged together. And love is something which is a source, not erotic, but it's a source which keeps those parts bound together.
Being a mother, I have experienced that love with my children. Wonderful conversation. And my last question before we end this very rich and very interesting conversation. I really enjoyed, Daniel. What lights you up?
The first thing that lights me up would be thinking, engaging in contemplation, and then the feeling of solidarity in groups. You know, the feeling. I recently taught prisoners and 3 hours I was on my feet in an unair-conditioned room, often sweating, but there was a true light that emerged in our class, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. Of course, my little 3-year-old Elijah, he goes to bed at night, also warms my soul as well.
That's nice. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. And I hope to speak to you again. I hope our conversation doesn't end here.
No, sure. It's been a pleasure and a delight. And I love the format, and I wish you great success with the podcast.
Thank you for watching Light Up Vichwa. This was part 2 with Daniel Tutt. I hope you have watched part 1 with him as well. So let me know what you think about these episodes or any other episodes. Send your feedback and subscribe to Light Up Vichwa. Thank you. Thank you for staying with me through this exciting episode. Please don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode of Light Up with Shwa.